favored designers. One of them in particular goes by the name of David Bromstad. No, but it's what was his show? Oh, my mother used to do. Color Me Something. Oh, Color Splash. That's it. Color Splash. And now I always thought David mixed. Ethnically speaking, I thought there was some Polynesian or Asian in his background, simply because of his eyes looked and his skin tone. Well, as it turns out, David Bromstad is a big tanning person. And he likes to be tan. But actually, when you look him, I was confused. Because I looked at my mom and says, well, he's kind of tall for her, but this is what usually happens. And this is really kind of weird, though. When whites and Asians mix, they usually have tall children. I don't know why that is, but I've seen it a lot. So I said to her, well, he looks like he's tall, and that's probably because one of his parents is Asian, and one of his parents is white. My mom looked at me and said, "No, he's all white." I said, "No way." I thought I was going to be smart. I'm going to look it up. According to David Bromstad, in interviews, and according to Wikipedia, and according to a couple of other places online, mother's correct. He's of Nordic descent. Bromstad, what do you think that is? Nordic. So's his mom. No Asian in him at all. So I'm just trying to, how the hell does he look that way then? I don't understand why people want to look some way that they're not. But it's all of this stuff combined of making certain people hate who they are. You got the University of Vermont having this annual weekend retreat course, class, whatever, 3 days of blasting whites only about how bad it is to be white. And of course, these kids are probably going to graduate from this class hating themselves for being white and wanting to be anything but white. So it isn't any surprise that you have Asians who want to be white, and they'll go through plastic surgery, the pain of and the expense of plastic surgery to try to change the way their face looks. And yet we have a jackass for a president who's telling us, no, we can't have, any type of litmus test for religion. Oh, yeah, we can. We should have a litmus test for a lot of things. If you're going to teach a kid that he should be ashamed of who he is, who he was born to be, you shouldn't be a teacher. Yeah, there should be litmus tests for, I'm not saying to be arrogant and overly proud of who you are and to think that you're superior to somebody else who isn't of your racial classification. That's equally wrong, because nobody's superior to anybody else. But if you're going to run around and teach people that they need to be ashamed of who they are, or who their ancestors are or were, shame on you, and you shouldn't be a teacher. Now, granted, the vast majority of slave owners in this country were white. Not all of them, by the way. Not all. Owned black slaves? Did you know that there were some white people that owned Native American slaves? Did you know that there were some blacks that owned Native American slaves in the South? Yes, it's historical and it's factual. Look it up. They were a small percentage of the whole slave process or industry back in that day, but they existed. But that's the big point. Back in that day, there's not a single white person today that owns a black slave, owns any kind of slave. So why is it, especially for whites who don't even have a lineage that traces back to slave ownership of any kind, why should they be made to feel so ashamed of being white? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. So, yeah, we need to start having litmus tests all over the place. Nothing wrong with it. It weeds out those people who you don't want to be in certain positions or to be in certain areas. We don't want in this country to bring in people who are not compatible with our culture, who are never going to be compatible with our culture, and indeed could be a danger to our culture. That is the litmus test. The litmus test is that Islam, Muslims are not compatible with our culture. I'm sorry, I know people who are of Muslim faith and Islamic faith. I tell them all, you're not compatible with me. They may say, well, no, we don't believe in that kind of Quran, Rod. We don't believe. I say BS. I say BS. It's how you were raised and brought up. You convert to Christianity or Judaism then. Or Buddhism. I don't care. Convert to any religion you want. Well, as long as it's not Satanism. But convert away from Islam. And then I will see that you are compatible. He's not really a friend, but I've only known one Muslim who converted. Obviously, that because they're the Coptic Christians, there are a lot of Arabs, if you will, former Muslims that have converted. But I've only known of one in my circle. And he's not really a friend of mine. I just happen, a friend of a friend. And believe it or not, as strange as it may sound, he converted from Islam to now a Jew. Which is fine. But I just thought that was... So, yeah, they can convert. Now, of course, he can never go back to his home country of Jordan. He was slaughtered. As soon as he steps off the plane, I guarantee he'll probably be slaughtered. But the point is that if they do that, then they're showing that they can integrate. They can meld. They can melt into our society and become a true American. You don't have to be born here to be a true American, but you have to be able to adopt to and transform into an American, what it means to be an American. We have a specific culture, and it is an amalgam. For those of you in Rush Limbaugh, that's, putting together. Kind of like when you have bread, when you're making bread, But we have an amalgam of cultures in this country that have made up the American culture. We've taken bits and pieces, the best of cultures from around the world, and in some cases probably in not. But we've taken bits and pieces of cultures of around the world and put them together and made them American into a single culture. You cannot do that with Islam. It will not allow that to happen. There cannot be any amalgamation or a melding. Everyone here in the U.S. has to convert to Islam. That's how they view the melting pot. You melt into Islam. That's it. Accept it or die. You accept it or you die. They're not compatible. Now now off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but they're probably not the only ones who are incompatible with our culture. And if there is another culture or religion that is incompatible, incapable of blending and melding and capitulating to the American way of life, into the American culture, then they should not be allowed to come here. There is nothing wrong with that. By the way, Mr. President, this religious test for refugees seeking asylum is actually required by law. I know the president's out there saying, well, we can't have a litmus test. We can't do that. Well, you're having a litmus test already by not allowing Christians because, with the 3,000 refugees so far, Middle Eastern refugees that we've accepted, at least in this report that I saw, less than 50 of them are Christian. The rest are Muslim. Well, that sounds to me. Look, Coptic Christians and other Christians in the Middle East are being slaughtered. Seems no matter where they are, Libya, Syria, Iraq, don't even get caught being a Christian in Iran or Saudi Arabia. No, not going to. They're being systematically slaughtered. I think that they're the true refugees and need a place to come, need a place to go. We should be welcoming them with open. The one thing you're not going to get is I don't think you're going to get a Muslim, an Islamist, especially a radical Islamist, pretending that he's a Christian in order to get it. I don't think that you can lie to an infidel, but I don't think you can, you're not supposed to even touch Christianity or any of its, it's sad, sadistic stuff according to hedonistic stuff according to Islam. You're not supposed. You can't do that. Now, if you can, then I guess I'm reading the Quran. I'm not an expert, but I guess I'm reading the Quran and the books of Muhammad wrong. Then, because you're not supposed, as far as I know, you can't. That's something you can't do. You can lie to a Christian or an infidel, but you can't pretend to be one. Why? Because you have to go and pray. You have to bow to Mecca 4 and 5 times a day. How are you not going to do? You have to pray to Allah 4 or 5 times a day. How are you not going to do that by pretending to be? Christians and Jews don't bow down to the east and pray 5 times a day. If anybody did that, we would know something is up. We would really know. The whole point is that you can have a litmus test. It's not illegal. It's not immoral. It's not even amoral. In fact, it's preferable. Do you think the Amish want the English infiltrating their communities in Pennsylvania and Ohio? Well, of course not. They don't want to bring all that outside world influence into their ordinance. If you want to convert to the Amish lifestyle and Amish religious beliefs, they'll keep an eye on you for a long time, but eventually they'll begin to trust you and accept you in. But if you're going to bring in, what was that movie with Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley? I love that movie too. It was hilarious. But they had to pretend to be Amish, even though that they weren't really fooling the Amish. But as long as they were pretending to be Amish, they were allowing them to stay. And as soon as it became known that they weren't, absolutely were not, they were shunned. When it became known that they were pretending, they were shunned. Well, we need to do exactly the same thing with Islamists. We need to shun them. We need to make sure that they do not come into this country. And those that are here, we should probably say, you know what you need to do, sweetie, is you need to pack your bags and your belongings and go somewhere else. Like, You from Syria? How about going back to Syria? Because I know places like Jordan, Egypt, they don't want you. Maybe you can go to Iran. How's that? But you need to leave here.